Welcome to the Subjective Professor podcast, where we reject coercion and hypocrisy. This is episode 262, and we're going to talk about Syria. So, as you can tell, my voice still hasn't come back. I was actually able to get a fair night's sleep last night for the first time in like a week. And so I think in a couple of days, my voice will be back to its usual self. But I figured, why not just keep making these episodes, just to vent some of the frustration that I feel after watching the news. So a lot of people are celebrating Syria, the downfall of Assad, and clearly this is nothing to really celebrate. I do want to say that I remember when I was a lot younger that there used to be favorable news stories about Assad and how he was sort of modernizing Syria, et cetera, et cetera. But now all of a sudden he's a bad guy, and so we should celebrate that he's no longer in power. The person who now is in charge in Syria, the terrorist leader, used to have a $10 million bounty on his head in 2017. And now he's the new leader of Syria with CIA backing. Isn't that crazy? And so basically, the United States, once again, has funded multiple terrorist organizations at the same time fighting them. And so this new leader in Syria, he killed many Americans in Iraq, and yet now he is celebrated as being a liberator, bringing freedom back to Syria, right? I mean, who believes this stuff? This is just, I mean, you got to be seriously childish level naive to believe any of this stuff. There were 1,000 troops, U.S. troops in Syria, and I think I saw that some of them were killed during these attacks. They were there in part to be triggers, right? So that if they are killed, it gives the excuse for the U.S. government to increase military intervention there. But they were also there to protect U.S. Uh, private interests that were stealing the oil out of Syria, which they've been doing for years now. There are also things that people aren't considering, that there are many Christians in Syria. But no one cares about them. They're now all refugees now. They're all trying to flee Syria to get away from this new extreme Muslim government. Russian interests were there, of course. Russia has a naval port in Syria, which is why they were always interested in having a relationship with Assad and Syria. Iran is also connected, partly because they supply Hezbollah through Syria in order to get to Lebanon from Iran. They go through Syria. So some people are saying that Israel had that ceasefire with Lebanon, and to prevent Hezbollah from being resupplied from Iran, that's when they encouraged this terrorist to basically take over Syria. You got also the Greater Israel map, so it serves the interests of Israel that Syria is going to become part of Israel. And everywhere you look, you will see dollars, American dollars, financing smaller terrorist groups who seem to serve the interests of America at one time or another. So American dollars are financing, organizing, training, and equipping all of these people. And then later on, it's US troops that are probably going to have to fight them, or they launch terrorist organizations which then attack America. So the new terrorist leader of Syria is an ideological descendant of the people who carried out 9/11. So it's kind of weird to see Americans celebrating this. It's just so bizarre. And then after all of this, you say, oh, okay, well, that's pretty confusing. And then you see the map of the pipelines that go through Syria. One that is financed by Russia, and the other that's financed by the United States. But both pipelines were designed to supply Europe, right? And so is this part of the picture as well? And so the question is basically, what's the real story, right? What's really the basic motivator for everything that's going on? And really, we have to stop thinking in terms of a single narrative. It's a collection of stories of different entities carrying out different missions, moving in a general direction. I mean, you got covert groups, intelligence groups, supplying different factions, different terrorist organizations, and then these terrorist organizations start fighting each other. And so it's US dollars on both sides. It's insane. It's a tremendous waste of resources, human life, and dollars. Our standard of living reduced as a result of all these shenanigans that happens overseas. Eventually, and this is what's really crazy, what bugs the crap out of me, eventually everything goes back to trade anyway. So you got that whole Vietnam War. 50,000 Americans die, right? For what? We're trading with Vietnam now. So there was no point to the war. Uh, all of this aggression against China, right? Think about it. They're our number one trading partner. So why are we saber rattling with them? Why are we trying to instigate some kind of violent confrontation with China? It makes no sense. And then Russia, why? You know, there was a point in time after the Soviet Union collapsed that a lot of Americans tried to steal everything out of Russia. And Putin put a stop to that. And is this why Putin is so evil that he prevented American corporations from going in and basically raping all of Russia of its natural resources? Sort of like the way that the United States was doing it in Ukraine. It's so bizarre. So all of this activity, this destruction, this death, this chaos, refugees, people losing their houses, losing their lives, losing their future, all because of special interest groups in energy and the intelligence community. This has nothing to do with us. All of this has created a global refugee problem, not just from the Ukraine, but from the Middle East, from Africa, and where do they want to go? They want to go to the places that is financing all of this, Europe and America. Because the United States and Israel bombs all these places, they've radicalized their populations, and then they take it out on Christians. They take their aggression, their hostility out on other people, and they introduce their radicalism, which then takes their civilization backwards, right? It doesn't lead to progress. it leads to regression. And so bad policy with bad results is regressive. War is regressive. What's the alternative? The alternative is free trade. So, what about free trade? What happens if you have free trade? First of all, there's no violence. When you trade, everyone has to be happy. And so people are happier with free trade. You have continuous competition among the people who are trying to make money. This competition keeps everyone honest. And it's those people who can't keep up. They are the ones who turn to government to try to cease the constant innovation so that they can take profits. See, that's the corruption. But as long as you protect that competition, that continuous competition, it leads to innovation and advancement. And because you cannot restrict competition, people learn to cooperate, people learn to adapt. All countries benefit with honest money. And so, all of this money printing here in the United States, that's the problem. That's the cause. We have to get rid of it. We have to stop it. Get people back to honest money, whatever that is, even to have a competition of currencies, right? If it's crypto, whatever, dollars, hard currency, whatever, it doesn't matter. As long as there's competition, even in the currency, you'll have more peace, you'll have more competition, you'll have more peaceful cooperation among people. And when you do this, bad cultural practices, bad religious practices are reduced in favor of better ones. You know, just like the way a lot of immigrants came to America and they saw that, you know, you could do better with different beliefs. A lot of people abandoned those beliefs that they thought were holding them back. The more free trade we have, the more exchange of ideas, people will discard unproductive ideas like radical Islam. When you have this constant competition, it keeps people humble, right? Because anyone can become new competition. And if the more that people are humble, you don't have this arrogance of we're number one. And you can be number one, sure, but it will be short lived, right? Because someone else will appear to challenge you. So either you get busy, right, trying to keep that position of number one, or you let someone else have it for a time. This leads to more humility and the recognition that any success potentially, probably, is short lived. Unfortunately, even though free trade is an easy sell to people, people in power will not go quietly. I'm sorry, excuse me. Just like in my own personal situation, because my classes were really popular. As a professor, I was really popular. I was a threat to people who were teaching all this woke ideology, all of this Marxist ideology. And so I had to go. They didn't renew my contract, right? So I'm waiting for February for my hearing. But until then, they get to celebrate. But the entrenched leaders that are protected by the power of their governmental structure, they will not go quietly. You know, maybe this is the fate of humanity. This is, we're destined to repeat this cycle of being duped into following puppet leaders who lie to serve their masters, whoever's pulling the strings, whether it's the military industrial complex, the bankers, whatever, energy moguls, whoever, it doesn't matter. Maybe that's our problem. That's what we are prone to do. So Trump has an uphill battle, right? And it seems like the hill is winning. The level of lying and manipulation and disinformation in our society today is staggering, especially if you have someone who thinks that they are pretty savvy, like Trump, who might feel a little bit too arrogant to look for advice, to look for help that from people who would actually help him. Then maybe he won't succeed. Or, like I said, and this is my secret hope of hopes, that he's playing 4D chess, right? And that he understands what's going on and he's making moves to bring it all down. That would be fantastic. That would make me take back everything negative I said about Trump, and I would be so glad to do so. But it seems that he has an uphill battle. It doesn't look like he'll actually succeed to bring down this deep state. But anyone can hope, and I can hope. But through it all, I will always maintain my moral compass. I'll try to keep spreading that subjectivity message, that there are many ways of looking at any different situation, which means there are many ways to diffuse a situation, which means that there is always the potential and the possibility of making things better. And that's what I want to leave you with, is that in the middle of all of this, really depressing news, that there is always hope. Of course, there's always hope, right? And it will be a surprise when it does happen, but I do hope that it comes sooner than later. That's it. Hopefully, my next episode will be in a much clearer voice. Take care till then.